This is BioVerse TV unplugging from social media. It's a journey to the places that we've forgotten, to the calm places that we sometimes forget to spend time in. We'll be meeting people, experts, and young people who have all found a way to disconnect from social media and reconnect with nature. We're not here to shame screens, but we're here to remind you that there's something more quiet, more still, more relaxing. This is about mental health, in finding places to be still in the world that's constantly moving, constantly asking more of us. Whether it's your back garden, a local green space, or a vast national area, disconnecting from screens and reconnecting to these areas is essential.
Birmingham, Britain's second largest city, home to over 1.1 million people. It's a place of industry, of innovation, and of movement. Just minutes from the city centre, there is a place where the trains still pass and the traffic still hums, but nature finds its peace and finds its place. We often think we have to go far to find stillness, but it's still here. In the quiet corners, in the margins of our life. It's still here and it still speaks. All we have to do is make sure we listen to it. We don't always need to escape the city. We just need to look again. Nature's still here, it just needs to be found.
I'm Lucy Lapwing. I am a general nature nerd really, just an enthusiast of all things wild. I currently live in Scotland, but I'm originally from Lancashire in the northwest of England. So this little spot is RSPB Sandwell Valley Nature Reserve, and I absolutely love it here. It's a gorgeous little hotspot of nature, this kind of green oasis hidden away in the middle of the urban sprawl. We're here in West Bromwich in the Black Country, very, very close to Birmingham. So we're surrounded on all sides by, quite an urban environment, and then there's just this little green oasis in the middle that's like a hubbub of wildlife. You get all sorts of bird life here. So, if you're on the bus or the train nearby, you'll see birds flying over and they're all coming towards this spot. So I used to work here a little while ago, so it's got a soft spot in my heart. It's where I learnt a lot of things about wildlife, including insects and birdsong and that kind of thing. So it's just an amazing place. It's incredible to see so much wildlife, crammed into such a small spot. I absolutely love it. But one of my favourite moments that I've had here was there's a number of ponds here at Sandwell where you can do pond dipping, so you can look for all sorts of critters in the water. And on a hot day in summer, you get this mass emergence of dragonflies. So if you come down early in the morning on the stems, I remember seeing hawker dragonflies, the larvae crawl out of the water, cling onto the stem, and just sat over the course of a couple of hours watching one tear its own back open, crawl out of itself, and then pump itself up into an adult dragonfly and fly away. And just to watch that process is something that it feels so secretive and alien at the same time that you shouldn't be able to see it, and yet you can. To be able to have like an up close, intimate moment with nature like that here, it's just such a special thing. Green spaces are so important for people. We all know that we feel mint when we're in nature. If you're in the trees or just somewhere green, when it's a sunny day like today in blue skies, it just lifts your mood, doesn't it? You feel so much better for it. And we know that so many people don't have access to that. So I know that I feel joy when I'm in these places, and it absolutely breaks my heart and angers me that so many people do not get to feel that same thing. They don't get to experience that. And that's because systems of inequality, people don't get to access these places, they don't live nearby them because there's so many places where they're not built in as part of an important part of, a neighbourhood or a town or a city. So it's an absolute travesty when people can't access places like this on their doorstep. They're so important, not just for the wildlife in it, but for people too, for our physical and mental health. You just want to get out and have somewhere beautiful that you can exercise, somewhere that you can learn about nature, see stuff, forage, watch insects, watch birds, and somewhere that you can, just escape and get yourself out of your head if you've got a demanding hard job or a really busy life, or, need to get the kids out and exercise them. Everyone should have access to this, and not everybody does. So I don't think I really have a daily routine when it comes to nature, because I almost don't really believe in the phrase get out into nature, because you can find nature wherever you are and you are nature yourself. I'm a really big advocate for finding wild things and finding other living things in the most unlikely of places. You know, we all have spiders in our houses, and you can find incredible nature in the corner of a bus stop or under a brick. Just watching woodlice, for example, is amazing. So I think nature for me is kind of almost like a daily mental exercise, because it's using all of my senses, not just sight, to engage with other forms of life in the world. I always just try and mentally give thanks and acknowledge and observe on a daily basis some other form of living thing. I find it just really helps. I think if you want to get into wildlife, or if you're interested in it, you don't necessarily need to fall into the trap of having to do a formal activity. So you don't have to go out bird watching, you don't have to go out butterfly counting. For me, like, nature is about, we're an animal ourselves, and so it's about going into my body and treating myself like an animal and using all of my senses to just observe other things. So I just like to go into a space, be it, you know, a park or a nature reserve, wherever you might be, and just see and observe all of the different things you can with all of the different parts of your body. So you're listening for stuff, you're smelling stuff, you're picking stuff up, you're touching it, it's tangible. And that way, having that kind of childlike curiosity, you find all sorts of like amazing stuff just by being really nosy, and like a small toddler questioning, why is that doing that? Why is that like that? What is that? What's that there for? You know, you see all sorts of stuff that, you know, you can very easily walk past. And I think that's one of my most valuable relationships with nature, is to just be nosy and curious. I love it. For me, being in nature, it is about removing myself from the chaos that goes on inside my brain. I'm a very naturally anxious person. I overthink a lot. I think I'm neurodiverse in some way. All sorts of mental health issues I've had in the past. So for me, spending time in nature is like the antithesis of my work inside us in a very human environment, a very modern human environment, should I say. When I'm on my phone or any kind of electronic device like that, I feel as though you're in a constant state of stimulation, and it's at a level that our biological system is not ready for yet. If you think of just scrolling on TikTok or Instagram, that level of kind of dopamine, and you're going through, you know, all different types of emotions, and seeing something really cute, then seeing something really traumatic, then seeing something really funny, and then something really depressing, and you're going on this emotional roller coaster and stimulating yourself like doo, 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 and it's all day every day, versus you go outside and detach from that, and you kind of almost remove yourself from the chaos that's going on in your brain. I'm quite an anxious person, so my thoughts are always whirring. And, you know, I've suffered from poor mental health in the past. So for me, it's going out in nature is the antithesis of that environment where you're being overstimulated all the time. It's a way of taking out of the worry part and just fully into your body, sniffing stuff, tasting stuff, touching stuff, getting dirty, listening, tying all of those senses together. It's completely different to sat at a desk or, you know, working where you're just in a completely different headspace. So I really only started realising the benefits of nature for my mental health as an adult. So when I was 23, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is kind of cancer. And I had to spend, 6 months out of work undergoing chemotherapy. And so, being on employment and support allowance at the time, I needed something cheap to do in my spare time. So I started going out into nature and just, like I said, just looking for stuff, looking for bugs, teaching myself about plants and birds and all sorts. And I found that at a time that should have been really quite scary and depressing, it was just this massive uplift. It was not a distraction, but it was something to focus upon, and just the level of joy and awe and wonder that it brought kind of put everything into perspective and took away, the scale of my worries, and made me feel as though I was a small part of this massive thing, as opposed to it just being focused on myself. So yeah, being out in nature massively benefits my mental health on an ongoing basis. And sometimes you can forget if you have like a really busy week or a really rubbish week, or you've got loads of stuff going on at work or in your personal life, and you're stressed and anxious and feeling sad, and you don't get the time to go outside. And then you do go outside and you're like, oh yeah, this is actually great. This actually feels amazing. And I think, again, it's just that fundamental part of being human, is that we love nature. We find it really interesting, so it brings us joy when we're out in it. There is absolutely no right or wrong way to be in nature. You can't do it wrong. Whatever is your style, however, your vibe is, whatever you enjoy, that's the correct way. The main tool that you need, you don't need kit, you don't need anything expensive, you don't need binoculars, you don't need out like that. You just need curiosity and enthusiasm. And if you go out with that kind of sense of childlike wonder that you had when you were a kid, when you're always bloody asking questions about stuff, go out with that attitude and just wonder and ask questions, nature starts to reveal itself to you. If you're into wildlife, whether it's a little bit or a lot, One of the best things that you can do with that is share the love and share the joy of it. One of the biggest superpowers that we've got in getting more people on board with this mission to turn around the nature crisis is to just share joy. So if you find something interesting, if you find something cool, it doesn't matter how nerdy it is, it doesn't matter if it's micromoths or earwigs, share that with people. Get other people on board. I think it's the best thing that you can do with it when you've got a passion like that.
The UK is home to 50 national parks. These spaces offer a unique opportunity to unwind and disconnect. They're each separate, but they all have something in common. They're special.
National parks provide a rare opportunity to step away and step back from our constant chaos, schedules, and just general busyness that is our modern digital life.
This part of BioVerse TV is exploring how these spaces can offer something out of the ordinary, how you can build a connection and start to look at the beauty of the natural world.
Travelling to these places, a chance to breathe, to reset, to reconnect.
National parks are unique, they're extraordinary, and everyone should have the chance to visit one.
Hi, I'm Jessica. I'm an animal behaviour and conservation student, and I'm passionate about environmental education and content creation, living here in Manchester. Growing up in Greater Manchester, I was lucky enough to always be surrounded by nature. I come from a family of people who always want to be outside and explore and adventure. And so to visit places like this as a kid, it's really my first introduction into wildlife, into birds, into the bees, into all the insects, and that's just where my happy place has always been. I became chronically ill in 2017 and I was housebound from 2018 to 2020. And those 2 years I was in a lot of pain, exhaustion, I couldn't sit up in my own bed and I couldn't really leave the house. I wasn't at school anymore. It was very socially isolating and I kind of lost myself a little bit, and as a family my parents really looked at it and thought, what was her childhood love, what makes Jess Jess? And for me that was the great outdoors, that was animals, and they wanted to bring that back to me. And so it was a process where they kind of started just bringing me out in the car and I would sit and just look out the window, and then slowly it became coming out and sitting on a bench and just reading my book, and they might go for a walk and I would just sit there and look. And then eventually it got to longer walks and more walks, and to the point where I'm at now where I can just walk endlessly wherever I'd like and explore nature as much as I want, just as I used to. And now I get the chance to study it. The nature never physically healed me, but it was a big part of getting me through that really hard time. And I would come out and I'd come into these green spaces and that dark haze would just clear and my mind would just clear. And so, yeah, it went from a fun time to something that was so special and so unique to me, and something that I really advocate for, as well as is how healing being outside was for me. One of my favourites to probably see, and It's because we've obviously got the reservoir and all the beautiful water, and that's a heron. I think to see a bird like that that's so big, it seems so out of character. Even though it's a species that you can commonly see, just seeing their long legs, there's something so prehistoric about birds that they absolutely love. It takes you back into a landscape that has changed so much, but really it's always been here. We're just very brief periods in the long time of wildlife, I guess. Being in Manchester, you're in a really great position. You're right by the city centre. There's so much going on, there's so much happening, and obviously it's very built up and very urban. But equally on the other side of that, you're right next to the Peak District. There's all of this wildlife, all of this expanse of green, and it's quiet. And as a student that commutes between that, I go into university, have all that busyness, and then I come back into where I live on the train, and I can feel myself taking a deep breath as I see more trees and more green come into that space. And I think that's what's so special about it. I think as I had that first-hand experience of being poorly and being stuck inside, and I think lots of us experience what that was like during COVID as well, is we know what it's like to feel trapped, and more than ever we want to escape that and get outside. And so from that experience, I find it so important to get outside, and so I really try and factor it into every day, really. Me and my family will take the dog out. It might be at the end of the day, I might be tired, and I'll be like, right, we need to go for a walk around the block. It's getting that fresh air, it's clearing your head, it's leaving your phone behind and just calming down and just having that quiet. So I try and factor it into every day, but a place as open as this, me and my family try to do it at the weekend, especially when I was doing my exams. That was a really big period that was so important for me to get outside. And coming outside and really factoring that into my revision time, it was so beneficial, because being out in nature, it boosts your creativity, it clears your head, it opens up for so much more space for you to think and really get your priorities straight as well. You come back feeling so inspired by what's around you, but also realising what's the most important thing. That all of those exam results and all of that climbing up the ladder at work or trying to get the best results, they all don't matter, because at the end of the day, all the birds are still flying around, the reservoir water is still flowing, everything's still moving around, and really you are just this little person on planet Earth. So I think connecting back with nature, it just reminds you of that, of how insignificant all of those worries are. So I really do try and factor it into everyday routine if I can. I do believe that the digital world can be such a positive space, and I think there's a lot of negativity around it, but we do really need to also look at the positives that it brings, and that is it really connects people, the communication that it brings people with like-minded ideas and similar interests and passions. I think that's really important to think about, but I think equally to everything there is a balance, and I think as popular as social media grows, people are starting to lose that bit of balance again, and we need to bring that back with a bit of digital detoxing. There's so much research that's gone into it already, into how much being out in nature improves your mood, your mental health, your connections with your relationships with people. So it's obvious that we want to be able to utilise that. So I think that coming into a digital detox, you take away everything that you're viewing online. I think at the moment we're in a society where everyone wants to be a perfectionist. It's all about productivity. Everyone's making themselves a self-improvement project because we're always reaching for more. Social media shows you the highlights, and so people are comparing their bad days to somebody else's highlight reel. And so by coming away from social media, coming out in nature, you reconnect with yourself, you reconnect with your own passions, your own interests, and it takes a lot of that comparison away. What's changed the most is that fauna and flora has actually flourished by popularity, because the more people that come, the more they love this space, the more they want to protect it. And from that, the national parks and these nature charities and also individual community groups have been able to come in and build fog boxes. There's a lot of cameras that you can spot hidden on trees to capture the deer, and there's so much work being done for conservation in this space. It's actually boosted the fauna and flora in this space because of that popularity. So I think that's why advocacy is so important. It's educating people about this space, but also engaging people into this space, because if you're bringing people into nature, showing them why they want to love it, making people love it, they're more likely to protect it. You don't have to be climbing to the top of the mountain. You don't have to be trekking through valleys. You can just sit on a bench and enjoy a cup of tea and a sandwich and read your book. It's about making these spaces accessible for all abilities, for people who have disabilities, for hidden disabilities. All these different communities need to have access to spaces, whether that's creating a wheelchair-friendly route, whether that's making community groups where it's a lot less overwhelming for people. It's about making it accessible for everyone. I think that people see naturalists and they'll look at Springwatch or Countryfile or BBC Earth and they don't identify themselves with those people. I think that's why it's so important for representation. So if people can see others that look like them, sound like them, come from where they come from, like doing what they are doing, they'll feel more inspired to go and explore it themselves. So if they think that they don't like nature or they can't see themselves doing that, it's just because they haven't found their passion within it. And so I think, give it a chance. You don't regret getting out in nature. You can't. Nobody ever comes back from being outside and going, oh, you know what, I wish I'd just stayed in that dark room, or I wish I'd just wrote a bit more of that email. I think just do it, really. And it's so important, and it's for every age. We all love it as children, adults love it, but there's such a gap of teenagers and in your 20s where lots of people don't prioritise it. I think we're in the hustle culture of working at university and college and getting our first jobs, is we don't think about taking ourselves back to our roots, and our roots as human beings is outside. So get outside.
Not everyone connects with these places in the same way. For some, they hold memories. For others, rituals or healing. Whilst we've been out meeting people in the field, we've invited others to share their own stories on their own terms, at their own patches at home.
The type of green space I'd like to talk about is the large forests that the UK has to offer, such as the New Forest National Park, which I'm lucky enough to live in. I connect with this space through walking and birding, because I think it's important to understand sort of nature itself and the science around us. And I think that's, from a mental health perspective, has been fundamental for me.
I personally spend time in green spaces daily, as I'm a horticultural apprentice in this parkland, and I work in the gardens all week, and on weekends or in my free time, most days after work as well, I usually go on walks or bird watching.
For me, spending time in green and blue spaces has an incredibly positive impact on my mental health. I'm lucky enough to live within a 20-minute walk of the beach, so for me, my happy place is the coast path.
I was burnt out in London. I was working 3 jobs. But one of those jobs was a summer gardening job, and after being in a dark editing room, I was a videographer student at the time, studying, working at New Look. Nobody wants to work at New Look, you know.
There's always beauty. You can always find beauty in everything that you do, from the trees to lovely sunsets, that just spending time out in nature, it can help anyone.
I didn't have a phone until I was 14, which is a lot older than any of my friends, and even at that age, it was only used for safety reasons and phone calls. I'm forever grateful to my parents that they did this, as it allowed me to have time in the park without any distractions, just climbing trees, wandering, going on walks and paddling in the streams.
Spending time outdoors has taught me to notice and find joy in the little things, whether that's a wren singing its heart out, a lichen-covered wall, or even just the sound of leaves rustling in the wind. They all make me smile and get that warm, fuzzy feeling inside.
I was exhausted, and literally the phrase "touch some grass," yeah, I touched some grass, whew, made me feel so much better.
Since I've spent this time outside, I have noticed a dramatic increase in how happy I've been and how content I've been with myself, because you learn that there is an outside world and it changes your reality in a way.
I find that I'm always calmer, happier and more focused when I'm outside. I can't imagine not being outside.
For me, spending time in green and blue spaces has an incredibly positive impact on my mental health. It's a quiet spot away from the hustle and bustle of the beaches, the town, and just outside of that university bubble.
Ionathan connects with nature in his own way. The places that he visits remind him to take a step back, to take a moment to stop, to breathe, and in the process allows him to form connections with the natural world which truly matter.
Hi, my name's Ionathan. I'm a 16-year-old based in Cambridgeshire. I work with charities such as my local wildlife trust to speak to politicians and help get more young people into nature. Living in Cambridge, I have access to many beautiful green spaces near me. I also regularly use many cycle routes around my city, and these give me access to a wide range of beautiful nature reserves and green spaces. There's not a particular green space which I visit, instead there are a number which I kind of alternate as the year goes on. For example, right now, in spring, I enjoy going to the woodlands near me and looking at the bluebells, but in summer I often like cycling to this beautiful gravel pit and watching birds such as terns roosting. I think the first and most obvious reason is the interesting wildlife you can see there. For example, in some nature reserves near me, there are many beautiful spring flowers. In others, there are very nice birds or insects. Sometimes they're just very nice places to get lost in and just sit and listen to the birdsong. I think the main reason I keep going back to them, though, is for my mental health. I am going through a time of my life where I have a lot of important, stressful exams, and I've found that going to green spaces, such as nature reserves, really helps me decrease my stress levels. I think another reason is also in winter I often end up feeling quite depressed, just due to the weather and I want to spend time indoors, just like on my phone. And getting myself to go outside, to go cycling, to go visit these beautiful green spaces really helps me counter that and makes me feel a lot better. Again, there's a number of reasons for this. The reason being in a green space helps me is because it acts as a bit of a distraction from the sort of world I'm going through. As a young person, I often need to there's a lot of very high social expectations, and being in a green space just helps me just get distracted from them a little bit, which is good. Also is the aspect of wildlife photography. I've got really into wildlife photography as a sort of hobby, and being in a green space allows me to do that, which is really fun. It's just a fun way to spend my time, and I feel like I'm just doing more with my time than if I was just on my phone. So it's a good way of spending time, for example, for weekends. So as I've just mentioned, they help me decrease my stress a lot. And the thing is, I've noticed with a lot of my peers, a lot of my friends who aren't necessarily into nature the same way I am, I've noticed that they are kind of struggling at the moment with all the exam stress and things. And I think getting more young people into nature will really help counter this, as at the moment young people are at a state of unprecedented pressure. We have to worry about social media, we're on our phones all the time, and we're also given very high expectation from our education. And the thing is, just as we are facing this level of pressure, we're also facing an ecological crisis. There's not enough green space in the UK, and it is very quickly decreasing as well. Near my house, I used to live right next to these fields with all these footpaths near them, with skylarks everywhere, beautiful, turned into a housing estate. And I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but that housing estate did not cater for any green space at all. They just built row upon row of houses. They're prioritising money over people's well-being. And I think this is something that we need to do. Make sure that in future developments they have to include a large amount of green space, rich in nature, that young people can enjoy. Also, In my work for my local wildlife trust, I've had a look at many different communities in Cambridgeshire. Now, Cambridgeshire, where I live, is one of the most unequal parts of the UK. You've got parts of it which are extremely deprived and which the government has seemed to have forgotten about. But you've also got other parts of it which are very rich in green space and that young people are able to access a lot. And I think in Britain today, we're in a very unequal society, and there is a majority of people in the UK who are not given the same opportunities as a privileged few. And I have to say I am quite privileged in this respect. Living in Cambridge, I have access to a lot of green space near me, a lot of very beautiful parks, nature reserves, but I know so many young people out there just don't have that and don't have the means of transportation to somewhere else. So I think the government definitely needs to work on this, and also sort of local leaders, maybe kind of reducing bus fares for young people can really help get us out and about. I've seen it happening near my home. The Mayor of Cambridgeshire made sure that like each young person can access a bus fare for just £1. And since then, I've seen in my friends, we're always just going somewhere else. We're going to like different towns, going to the countryside, and it's doing so much better for our mental health. But I want this kind of thing to be done everywhere. And I think that's what we need to do to support more disadvantaged young people in the UK. So I've got a big example of this, the seasons. In winter, it's just a lot colder, it's a lot less nice to be out and about. And that kind of discourages me a lot. So I spend a lot less time outside in winter than I do but in summer, usually every single day, I'm out just like doing photography, out with my mates. And because of that, I feel like I might even have seasonal depression. So it kind of speaks for itself. Like in winter, I'm much more kind of secluded, a bit less social usually as well. I tend to do less well academically. I tend to get slightly lower grades than in summer, where I often get like 1 to 2 grades higher. So I think it's like proof, for me at least, being outdoors does me so much good. I feel that social media has had a big impact on us, and especially as young people. I read an interesting article the other day that social media has like sort of got rid of boredom. That's not really a thing anymore with young people. And boredom is, although it obviously doesn't feel good, it's a very good incentive to go out and about in nature. And having a phone which you can just easily flip out and just start like doom scrolling on, it's so much easier to do that instead of going like cycling or looking at wildlife and stuff like that. It's just sort of become less easy for young people to do that. Phone addiction is a very serious thing, and I don't think that we as a country are taking that seriously enough and providing young people the support needed. I believe if you're a young person watching this and you want to spend more time in nature, then I would recommend a few things. Now, the first thing, get off your phone a bit. Just decide that there's going to be one time each weekend, like 2 hours, where you're not going to be in your phone, and you're just going to go out on a walk, even in your local neighbourhood. That still counts as like outdoor space. There's probably like parks. Better if you can take like something like a bus, a cycle to like the countryside, because that is a very good way to experience the outdoors. Go on a hike, go cycling, get into something like photography possibly. So this will give you that final push to actually get outside and enjoy nature more. And this is going to have a big positive impact in your mental well-being and also in your physical well-being as well. So I would really recommend, if you're watching this and don't know where to start, just go outside and see where that leads you. And if you're like me, you'll really enjoy it.
Everyone has their own unique way of interacting with nature. For Esmé, it's right here in her local area. She doesn't need to travel far to walk past these trees or to see the birds flitting in the air above her. Taking time away from social media has allowed Esmé to form connections with the natural world, which are really important and really to be cherished. This is her story.
I'm Esmé, I'm 16 years old. I'm a home-educated secondary school age student. I think my favourite green space would be this area next to our local airfield. It's a few fields with a path running through it, surrounded by young trees, and it's absolutely stunning up there. I have been walking up there every single day really for the last 3 or 4 years, ever since I got my dog, and I've had some really incredible experiences there. I've seen barn owls and kestrels. I've seen some hedgehogs very close up, and I've seen some really incredible sunsets. So it's got a lot of special memories for me, and it's just absolutely beautiful. Physically, it's definitely benefited me because there's a hill going up to it and a hill going down, so I'm obviously building up bone density and increasing my fitness every time I go up and down there. But I think it has an even greater mental impact. It's where I go when I need to get some space from all the hectic parts of my life, where I go to process or to just enjoy the beauty of nature and enjoy the solace there. It's just perfect for thinking things through and just escaping from reality, I suppose. Well, obviously, physical health is a reason, but I'm aware that we can exercise in a lot of places. You don't necessarily need a green space. So the main reason I'd say is mental health, because firstly, being in nature just allows you to escape from the very technology-based world we have today and all the noise of everyday life. But it also really just provides peace, because you're just surrounded by this beauty and you can just breathe there, you can do whatever you need, and you can just look at everything and be there for hours and not get bored. Nature is just the most incredible thing in my opinion. There's so many different parts to it, and I think there's definitely something in there for everyone. You know, there's the plants, there's insects, there's birds, there's mammals, and there's so much there that offers so many special opportunities, and people don't get those opportunities as much without green spaces. Wildlife is still everywhere, but not to the same extent. And so if we don't have those green spaces, people are missing out on these opportunities to connect with these species who have been here for so long and who impact our lives in so many ways every day. And it's just a waste for people not to be able to experience that. Definitely daily. My dog does not let me skip a single day of walking, so it's partly not optional, but I love being in them. There's always something to see. Not always as incredible as a barn owl or a hedgehog, sadly, but there's always something there that's just stunning and allows me to find a bit of solace from the hecticness of everyday life. So I go daily, and it's just become part of my schedule now, so I can't imagine not going every day. I've been ill quite a bit recently, winter bugs, and when I wasn't going out I was very depressed because there's not much to do indoors. On a screen you get bored after a while, and because nothing can touch all of this, it's just, you get pulled into this world and it's just so incredibly dull if you're not there, and it's essentially a breath of fresh air, so I kind of felt suffocated when I wasn't able to come out and experience it. There's definitely inequality. I have friends in cities and it's so hard for them to get to a green space because everywhere's concrete, which is great for easy access to shops. But when you're looking for a green space, it's incredibly difficult because everything's just grey, and they have to go so much further to find one. And even then, the quality is not the same at all because the pollution in cities just kills off so many species. So I definitely say there's an inequality. It's always hard to tear myself away from a really engaging film to go outside, and it's also incredibly tempting when I'm outside to be on my phone if I can't see much fauna around me, like birds or mammals, because social media is great in the sense that it allows everyone to connect, but everyone is almost always connected. So you have to turn yourself off from it because it's not going to turn off. And so it's very hard to disconnect from all that because there's always new opportunities coming up or new messages from friends or family. So it's definitely difficult to tear yourself away, but when you do, it's absolutely worth it. The first thing would definitely be to find a green space and one that you actually enjoy being in, because if you're not enjoying being there, then you're not going to want to come back. So the key thing is finding somewhere that you enjoy spending time in, and then once you've done that, building it into your schedule, because it doesn't have to be hours and hours and hours there. You can spend 10, 15 minutes there and potentially see something brilliant and just get some peace. And 15 minutes isn't too much out of your day, but it's absolutely worth it.
I'm Ajay Tegala. I'm a nature presenter, a wildlife writer, a countryside ranger, a conservationist, and even a podcast presenter. So my work evolves around working in the world of conservation on a nature reserve in the east of England named Wicken Fen. I also previously worked on Blakeney Point on the Norfolk coast, so the National Trust is my employer. So how did I get going? How did it all begin for me? Well, I suppose, my earliest memories really at home in the garden I grew up in are of birdsong. Blackbirds and song thrushes, starlings, all these birds, sparrows, some of which that have sadly declined in numbers. In fact, all of those species I mentioned aren't as common as they were when I was growing up in the sort of early 1990s into the year 2000 and beyond. And then I suppose a turning point, a pivotal moment was when I was 15 years old and we had to do work experience at school. And my parents suggested I go to Wicken Fen, actually, because that was near where my grandparents lived, and it's a place, of course, where I discovered what the world of wardening, rangering was all about, what the word conservation even meant. I'd not heard of it until then. And my folks had noticed that I love being outside, that I love being near water, something very exciting but also very calming and really lovely about being around water and the species, the wading birds, otters that I would finally see years later, and a grey heron was my favourite bird as a youngster, because compared to all the small birds on the river, seeing these massive grey herons flying so elegantly really excited me. And next to them in the book was the bittern, so it took many years to see them. But of course I learnt about how man has drained the fens, man has destroyed wetlands and moved them or got rid of them completely to make space for our own needs, our own sometimes arrogant needs, sometimes kind of money focused. And I wanted to make a difference because I knew I'd learnt at school that nature was in peril. Even in the 90s, it was a very hot topic actually at school, and it really reached me on an emotional level, actually, learning about how nature was being destroyed and lost. So yeah, that combined, that sort of the niceness of feeling very happy in those environments compared to being able to do something positive, to feel like I was making a difference. Just creating a wetland actually can make a difference almost overnight. So I guess just through the nature of my interest and my career, kind of lobbying and campaigning is just a natural part of that, sometimes even without realising. Megan McCubbin said that actually, we're all campaigners really. You don't necessarily have to be on the scale of the wonderful people like Hannah Bourne-Taylor, for example, who's doing really creative things to gain the attention of politicians, to create space for swifts, to conserve this dangerously declining bird. We shouldn't feel overwhelmed because even the small actions can add up to make a difference, whether it is cutting down on the plastic that you use. And I think a lot of these messages, maybe you've heard them many, many times before, but we need to keep retelling them. And so storytelling is part of what I do, whether it be television, whether it be books or talks, talking to all groups of people. And it's telling those stories on a personal level. I wouldn't dictate to people this is what you've got to do, but talk about my own experiences and communicating, sharing, telling stories, telling your own perspectives, listening to others. That's what it's all about. And so that's what my life includes, really. No 2 days are quite the same, because you might be faced with I don't know, one of our breeding livestock giving birth one morning, and then having to do some practical work, having to engage with a group of people, an opportunity coming in to do something in the world of media, and it all fits together. And that's what I do, and I love it. And I love most of all, as well as the places that I go, the wildlife that I see, it's the people that I meet as well. There's always new perspectives to be unearthed, and new creative ways of moving forward and saving this wonderful world that we depend on so much, and that united we can protect as much as we can. And I'll be doing that forever and ever, I'm sure.
Sunshine, return to me! I'm now going to be filming you to see how fast you can do this.